Hi, I'm Teresa with Art of Yoga, and today we're doing a brief-ish sequence here that'll be maybe up to 30 minutes, but it's going to be specifically for grief and for heartache, let's put it that way. There's a lot going on in the world as I make this video, and we're going through the global pandemic, and a lot of us are still in a sheltering in place situation. So it's a lot of grief in the world, whether people are sick or economically impacted. And there are times in our lives when grief comes about. It's common, it's normal. We all have different times in our lives where we have losses. So this is just a little sequence to kind of help that heartache and soften our hearts a little bit. So let's start with a blanket, if you want one, to help you in your child's pose and just give you a little support. A block, which can be used for supported bridge pose. If you don't have a block, then you can certainly use your blanket and just kind of fold it over. You could even fold it really high. So those are the two props that would be suggested today. I'm going to set my block aside and maybe use it here in a little bit. So with the blanket, we're going to start in a supported child's pose. And what you might want to do with your blanket is you could put it under your knees for support there. The other option, for a lot of us, we have tight hips. So if your hips are tight and you want the support underneath. Now if you can sit on your heels, that's totally fine. If instead you want that little extra support, then put your blanket here, and that way it allows you to sit all the way back. So what we want is to be very supported. So I'm going to take my blanket away because I'm not going to be using it right now, because I can go ahead and sit back and that's more comfortable for me. So we're going to start with our knees a little bit wide. Sit back on your heels. Grab your blanket if you like. And if you don't have a blanket, you can always use a rolled up beach towel. And then we're going to just bring our arms out in front of us. Now don't come all the way into your child's pose yet. We're going to get a couple breath things going here first. So let's take a big inhale through the nose. Sigh out through the mouth. And do another one like that. Inhale through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. And then pause here and just kind of notice your breath. And you can take those exhales through the mouth anytime that you feel like you need to. Like if your breath isn't coming easily, please feel free to do that. So we're going to do one more, and we're just going to be a little silly on this one. We're going to do the lion's breath. So we're going to open our mouth, stick out our tongue when you exhale, and make your eyes really wide. Okay, so inhale, exhale, and release. Okay, so it's always good to find a little goofiness when you can, and that kind of can lighten things up a bit. All right, so having a seat on the heels, knees wider, toes touch. Bring your arms out farther now. And keep reaching out and maybe let your forehead touch the mat. Now if your forehead doesn't reach the mat, this is where a block could come into place. Here you could have your forehead on a block, and that way that could be supported. So lots of options to make sure that you're comfortable. So I'm going to bring my head up a little bit so I can talk to you, but keep some grounding with the head. Now while you're here, start to kind of crawl your fingers out. So we're going to be really active. It's going to be a reaching child's pose. We want to really activate our arm muscles, reaching through the fingers, the wrists, the shoulders, the elbows. And then notice if you can kind of press back even more, and see if you can allow the heart to kind of sink down between your arms so that you're really opening up in the front of the rib cage. And we'll hold here for a few breaths. And take a moment to just notice how you feel. So you might notice when you're in grief, there's a lot of different feelings that can come up. Anger, sadness, anxiety,
So all those emotions can kind of start swirling around, and it's hard to really separate them. So a few things we can do is, one is just identify and notice and be with that is happening. And then use your breath to kind of find this holding. I love the idea of Thich Nhat Hanh says, when you have grief, hold it like a crying baby. Just let it cry, let it be. Eventually, as deep breaths come, starts to subside. It doesn't go away completely, but it subsides. It makes it easier to find some place to be with it. We'll take 2 more breaths here. Now let's walk hands over to the right. So you're going to walk hands over to the right. Now if you'd like a little extra stretch, take your left hand and stack it on the right. So we're trying to just kind of open up a little bit underneath the left shoulder. Walk back through center and walk your hands to the other side. Again, you can stack the right hand on the left now if you'd like. And just opening up in the right side of the body. And then walk back to center. Okay, we're going to add another little stretch here. So we're going to keep the left hand out, and your right hand's going to reach behind you. And then you're going to turn so that your left temple is on the mat. And we'll hang out here for a few breaths. So we're just trying to get this kind of stretching the arm back. Now if you want, you could bend your elbow and place your hand on your back, or you can keep reaching it. And as you do that, see if you can kind of feel this stretch between fingertips so that you're kind of lengthening out. And you can keep crawling out your left hand. And take a few breaths here. And then release. Right hand over, left hand reaches behind. So same thing here. Turn your head so that your right temple is on the mat. I'm going to come back to center so you can hear me. Keep reaching. And just kind of sink in for a little bit. So we're getting a little stretch, more in the shoulders, more in the neck. Just kind of still opening up that heart area. Extend both arms again. We're going to kind of crawl up and sit back on our heels. You can bring your knees a little closer together. And just kind of notice, hopefully there's this kind of lengthening feeling. When we come into grief and we're anxious, we kind of get this tucking in and this protection going. And at the same time, our breath becomes shallow. So we're trying to just get this nice and open and get the breath moving deeper. Sometimes if we can get some of those physical characteristics that happen in the body to kind of dissipate, it makes it much easier to deal with whatever's happening in your life. And we're going to come out toward hands and knees. What we're going to do is kind of curl our toes under and take this kind of modified child's pose, pressing back with the toes curled and stretching out. And then we're going to take that and we're going to glide out and begin to lower yourself down into Sphinx. So we're going to have the legs nice and long behind you, press in the tops of the feet. Fingers are spread wide, elbows are your support under your shoulders, and make sure that those shoulders can feel open and not hunched. So we're going to kind of lower down, lengthen through the legs, and then pull up a little bit and pull up in the belly. So bring your chest forward in particular and your gaze forward as well. And we'll just take a couple breaths here. So with this lengthening and this pressing open of the heart still. Lower down, hands underneath. We're going to do that same toes curl, press up, lean back as if you're coming into a child's pose. And then we'll come right back out. And this time though, we'll keep our hands underneath the shoulders. We're gonna do a cobra here. Uncurl your toes. And if you'd like, you can come up higher. You can keep your elbows bent, but keep the elbows in tight. So you should feel them tucking to your side the whole time. Press into the mat and begin to lift and decide how far you want to come. And you can kind of play with lifting. We're going to hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Come on back down. Now we're going to make a pillow for our head. You can also have your chin there. And then bend your knees. Let's take a very easy movement side to side. So loosening up in the hips can hold emotions. And sometimes when we come into difficult times, grief times, the body holds that experience. And so each time we come into a grief experience, we want to try to loosen that up in the body a bit. Again, just making space to be able to work with whatever is going on. Okay, so hands underneath, palms spread wide, elbows close. Take a little lift and lengthen. And lower right back down. Okay, curl your toes and press up. We're going to come around onto our backs and do a few poses here. So have your block nearby so that when we come into supported bridge, you have that. You could also, again, use a blanket instead. Coming around and on your back, feet on the mat, knees bent. So take a moment here to place your hands on your belly and just breathe. You can close your eyes or keep them soft. And then let's take the left hand to the heart and the right hand stays on the belly. Take a few breaths here. And one more deep breath. Release both hands to the belly, and we're going to take a couple of really fast breaths and then we'll take some really long breaths. So I want you to feel your belly puffing up. And you can, we'll inhale through the nose and you can exhale through the mouth if you want, or you can exhale through the nose. So I'm going to do nose, and we're just going to go. And then release. And I'm going to take one really deep inhale through the nose. And side out through the mouth. Release your hands down to your side. Lift up on the pelvis and slide your block or your blanket underneath. Make sure that there's some support. Now you could even use a bolster here if you have a bolster. And want that pelvic area where the tailbone is to be supported on the block. So we're going to hold here, and you'll notice just this lift is kind of taking a slight curl in the pelvis. It's pretty flat on there, but it's a little bit of a curl, and we've got this curl in the belly. We should have this nice open heart. So we're going to keep our shoulders down and open and not walk the shoulders under too much, but feel this kind of widening at the heart area. Keeping the chin tucked, and your legs are just kind of hanging out and supporting themselves. So there's no need to engage anything. And we're going to hold here for a few breaths. And as you're holding, just kind of, again, focus on the body. How do you feel? Where do you feel? If everything feels yummy now, that's great. Just kind of keep scanning and breathing. And if you get to a little stuck spot, a tight spot, see if you can imagine that there's a fluidity to that area. See if you can imagine a lava-like
fluidity, with warmth and movement. Just kind of this flowing all through the body. Get constrictions when we come into anxiety, when we have grief. And so those constrictions, like I said, they kind of stay in the body and they can cause some physical harm. We get dis-ease when we're stressed. When we have distress, stress can be good too. There's eustress, a good stress, where you're putting stress on the body. For instance, if you're doing running and getting that good stress on the body, and that's good for your bones, good to build cells. But when we get distress, it causes disease, which can lead to long-term consequences in the body. So I want to just find this easing and letting go. And sometimes finding that ease in the body can bring some clarity as well. We'll take 2 more breaths here in our supported bridge. You're going to lift the hips up and take out whatever prop you had supporting you. Set it aside. We're going to curl into a little tiny ball. Knees come into the chest. So imagine if you're in child's pose, how we started. You're in the same position. So we're going to draw the knees a little bit out and the heels of the feet a little bit down. And go ahead and curl up. So we're going to round the back here for a moment. And just kind of tuck in. Lower the head down. And continue to hug the knees. And now if you'd like, you can bring them together. They could stay wide, but see if you can hug them even more. And keep your chin tucked a little bit. And if it feels okay, you can take a little rolling side to side. Some of the poses that we do is very childlike. It's very, if you watch a child, especially a 2-year-old, they like to lay on the floor and do this when they're upset. So there's some comfort to finding this grounding and just kind of moving through the body. Release. And we're going to come into a legs of the wall. So hands at your side, legs straight up. Now, if you want to scoot toward a wall, you're more than welcome to do that. It's pretty easy usually to get your legs just kind of in a place where they support themselves, where you're not really having to support anything. But if your legs get shaky here, there's a couple options. Going to the wall and letting the legs rest on the wall. You could also still have a block or a blanket underneath your sacrum. So let the shoulders relax. Once again, at any point you can close the eyes or keep them open. And we'll just lengthen through the legs gently without any force. And there's this idea that we put this nice kind of a stress on the body with this pose. And it's a very restful position. It's supposedly good for immunity because we're forcing a little bit stronger circulation in the legs. You might have heard somebody say reverse your blood flow. You can't really do that. That would be weird. But you can kind of force this change in the way things are moving through the body. And I kind of think of things like we process a lot of toxins when we're at dis-ease. So we're trying to allow the body to do all the things that it naturally does to remove toxins and get our lymph systems moving a bit as well. Get the circulatory system working. And we'll take a couple more breaths here. I'm going to come into reclined Baddha Konasana. Bend your knees. The
soles of the feet will come together as the knees come over to the side. Now, if this is really uncomfortable, you can always have a block under each knee, or like a block and a blanket, or 2 blankets. So we're not coming into quite a restorative type pose, but we want to just let the hips open gently and continue to press the feet together. So without like a lot of strength, just this gentle pressing. And then keep letting the knees fall open with gravity. So we're not going to do anything to press them open, but we're just going to let them open up gently. And as you are here, there's a couple arm options. You can either place your hands on your belly and feel the rise and fall of the breath. You can have left hand on the heart, right hand on the belly. Or if you feel more comfortable, your arms can come into cactus arms. So I'm going to keep both of mine on my belly. Be sure you're keeping your chin tucked a little bit as well. So we don't want this like overarching in the back of the neck. So this little tuck of the chin. And then we'll breathe here. And once again, checking in, seeing if you feel any constrictions in the body, particularly through this whole channel from the crown of the head all the way down into the pelvic region. Those chakra spots. So notice if there's any places that feel stuck. And see if you can imagine, once again, that you've got a little bit of warmth running through the body now with your breath. And that you're allowing that to open and flow. Healing takes time. And it's hard to be patient sometimes when things become challenging in our lives. So the breath can help. And sometimes when you're in a pose, maybe take an extra few breaths. So you can always count your breaths. And sometimes you can get to a point where you're counting and you lose count because there is a little ease that starts to funnel in. And we'll take 2 more breaths. Drawing the knees together. We're going to go legs up the wall just for a moment, just to extend the legs long. You can take them a little bit farther back or keep them straight up. Hug the knees to the chest. Bring the chin up as well. And you can lower down and press around to one side. So I'm just going to roll and I'm going to be facing the other direction, but that way I don't have to really move and get up. We're going to come back into child's pose. This one I would suggest knees together and hands at your side. So you're really tucking in. You might find that you can bring, instead of the forehead, you're going to bring more the crown of the head to the mat. And that's kind of a nice place to rest the head. Let the arms drop away so the shoulders are not being held up. They're just falling. So there's this widening in the back. And take a few breaths here. And as you're breathing, notice how the body feels. So you can keep your breaths nice and full and deep. Take one more deep breath. And place your hands next to you and just press yourself up very slowly. Curl up. Once you lift the head up, just sitting back on the heels, keep your eyes closed here for a moment. Bring your hands to your lap. We're going to take a few breaths here. Now, if this is uncomfortable, you can plop a blanket underneath. It's
take the left hand to the heart, right hand to the belly. Your eyes can stay closed or you can open them. We'll take some inhales here. And exhale through the nose. One more like that, nice and deep. Inhale. Exhale. Release the hands back to your lap. And just soften the breath. Stay tall, but stay soft. We're going to do one more breath here, inhaling through the nose, and then we'll exhale through the mouth, and we'll get it really deep. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. And let that go. And we'll take a little gentle twist, twisting to the left. Just kind of wringing it out. A little gentle twist to the right. And go through that one more time. Twist to the left. Twist to the right. And release. Have a seat. Cross legs gently. Bring hands to your lap. Close your eyes. Sit up tall. Check in with the body and just imagine, even if you don't know where the chakras are, just imagine there's 7 points starting way low in the groin, coming up to the belly, and we'll pass through the heart as well. And just think of this channel coming through and then eventually releasing through the crown of the head. Any one of those places could be a stuck spot. Often heart, we literally feel a heartache when we're in grief. So that might be where your pain is, where your ache is, physical or metaphysical. Could be belly. We get belly, gut aches, right? It's like somebody kicked you in the gut. Maybe you feel something there. And some of us feel all the way into our groin area. So just imagine again that you've got a little bit of fire. Not too much, nothing that would burn you. Just a little bit of warmth, like some warm lava. And it's just kind of flowing through the body, and we're letting it kind of burn in a very gentle way, away a little bit of the ache, a little bit of pain. And release. Let's bring our hands, start center, keeping a little tuck in the chin. Let the thumbs rest on the sternum. And so one of the things that you can do to stay in the moment, grief is often going back, something that happened, even if it's very recent, could be something that's happening as well. And there's maybe not one point, like if there's this global pandemic that we're in right now, it's not like a thing happened and we can get past it. It keeps happening. And so that's one of the huge challenges. So how do you work with that? You just keep coming back to this present moment, to our breath, coming back to gratitude, finding even just one little thing to be grateful for. It could be your breath, your body, it could be the flower that you see in your room or out your window. It could be a pet, smile of a child, the smell of a beautiful day. Finding just a little bit of gratitude can help us stay present, stay in the moment. Thank you so much for practicing with me, and I'll see you again soon. Namaste.